The prosecution has wrapped up its case in the murder trial of Caylee Anthony, the Florida mother accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter. Our Carson Chambers is following the latest developments in Orlando. Carson?
Well, good evening. The state spent more than a month laying out its case very carefully in chronological order, and today the state rested its case. Now, the defense is expected to call its first witnesses early tomorrow morning around 9 a.m., but not before they ask the judge for what's called a direct acquittal. They said circumstantial evidence in the case is not strong enough for a conviction, but the judge did not agree. He did not see it the way they did and denied the defense's motion. Now, lots of names on the defense's witness list. They have George Anthony on there and also a meter reader who found Caylee Anthony's body, but they added one more name to that witness list today. He is a convicted felon, and it's a story we're working on for 6 o'clock. Live in Orlando, I'm Carson Chambers, ABC Action News.
Thank you, Carson. Well, the question a lot of people are asking is whether Caylee Anthony will take the stand. Our Dave Reynolds goes in depth, and he joins us now with more on that. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Linda. By the way, a local lawyer I talked to today called Caylee Anthony's potential testimony, quote, a slippery slope. But because defense attorney Jose Baez's opening statements were so strong, others feel she may not have a choice but to take the stand. Tampa attorney John Fitzgibbons is no stranger to high-profile cases with a young, attractive defendant, as he represented former teacher Deborah LaFave, who pleaded guilty to statutory rape of a middle school student in 2005. Fitzgibbons says he would have Caylee Anthony testify.
It's always risky when a defendant takes the stand, but there are some cases that a defendant simply has to take the stand to explain what happened. And the defense has laid out a defense in the opening statement that pretty well can only be introduced by Caylee's own testimony.
Robert Peterson is a partner in the Tampa firm of Maston, Lyerly, Peterson, and Denbo. He feels the defense has limited their options from the start and that putting Caylee Anthony on the stand could do more harm than good.
It's probably bad news if they put her on the stand and the prosecution is given the opportunity to show how many lies she's created and the implausibility, and to, in essence, have the jury really loathe her, which would, in essence, kind of help them perhaps justify or rationalize, if there is a conviction on first degree, the death penalty.
Both lawyers say it's important for Caylee Anthony to show remorse and believability to the jury if she testifies.
Right now, she's been portrayed as somewhat of a party animal, having a good time while her infant daughter is missing, and that's a pretty damning type case.
With the parents, they will be considering the circumstance, and they will be looking at the emotions of Caylee Anthony. They will be trying to determine whether those are crocodile tears or tears of remorse, or if there's what the emotion really means. And juries should be, they're respected.
Now, Peterson added that Anthony may have demonstrated a callousness by placing blame on her parents and feels the defense could unleash another bombshell with Caylee's potential testimony, while Fitzgibbons called the entire trial, quote, a three-ring circus. Brendan?
Hard to argue with that sometimes. Thank you, Dave. Joining us now is legal expert Stephen Crawford. Stephen, where do you come down on this? Do you put her on the stand or not?
Well, that's the problem. She's really between the devil and the deep blue sea. She needs to take the stand. The attorney made a number of assertions in his opening statement that only she can testify to and validate. If she doesn't take the stand, the jury's going to want to know, well, what about all these promises the defense attorney made? On the other hand, if she takes the stand and the jury doesn't like her, she takes a giant step towards the death chamber.
Yeah. What the prosecution has established, as far as I can see so far, is that Caylee Anthony acted strangely carefree in the wake of her toddler's disappearance. And they've also established some connections between some physical evidence and Caylee Anthony. Still circumstantial. Is that good enough?
If they prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, circumstantial evidence is enough. All that evidence about Caylee partying is really with an eye towards the penalty phase. Remember, the state's trying to put her in the death chamber.
Right. Still circumstantial evidence. What does the defense do next? Do they try to sort of flesh out and nail down this alternative theory of Caylee's death, that she drowned in the swimming pool? Or do they just sort of throw as much reasonable doubt at this case as they can, hoping for that uncertainty in the minds of the jurors?
Well, the answer is both. You got to prove what you said you were going to prove in opening statement, and then put everything else you can out there in the hopes that one or two jurors will go with it.
All right. Anybody watching this this case is sort of a juror in a way, and we asked our viewers what they thought. A web poll question was, do you think the prosecution made their case against Casey Anthony? And the numbers came down like 469 said yes, guilty. Only 23 said no, there's reasonable doubt. So is that any way reflective of what the jury might be thinking?
Well, even the most ardent of viewers that have watched this case from beginning to end hasn't been there in the courtroom. And there's no substitution for that. We saw a surprise in the O.J. Simpson case. Let's see what happens in this one.
All right, Stephen Crawford, thanks very much. The defense takes center stage tomorrow morning. We also want to make sure you know that we're streaming the Casey Anthony trial live, start to finish on abcactionnews.com. Linda?